just get started.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Greetings and welcome. It's time for Discussing Tabletop. It's, of course, August 5th, 2023. I hope everybody's having a great weekend and a great Saturday so far. Thank you for joining me today, Worm. This is my guest host today. I really should introduce everybody who's joining me with the guest host or the regular hosts, you know, at the beginning, but I don't always remember to.
Sorry, I'm having fun. It's like a very slight.
Oh, you are slightly off. It is slightly off kilter. I don't know that too. I could theoretically fix that, but it's kind of funny, and it's okay. Scuff is one of my things. It's alright. If Scuff wasn't part of my existence, I don't know what would. Anyway, there is a huge... Well, the docket's not that big, but there's a lot of like little things in each section of the docket, I should say. So yeah. I guess we should sort of get into that. And it starts out with the announcements that we have from Magic for 2024 and then into 2025, 2026. So I'll put the link here in chat because this is the... It's got some very nice images that show off that what they're doing. So, a lot of the Universes Beyond stuff we know about. Things like, okay, they're naming like a bunch of sets here. We're seeing a Ravnica remastered next year, an Innistrad remastered. And the remastered sets are, might be good, might not be good.
Bunch of crossovers.
Fallout, Assassin's Creed, Final Fantasy in 2025, and then, yeah, and we all, not on this one, but also announced is there will be a small one with the Lost Caverns of Ixalan and the Jurassic Park film series. Probably similar to when they did the last time they did well, that wasn't Ixalan, I think it was Ikoria. They did, like a Godzilla crossover. I assume it's going to be like that, where they'll have like Godzilla like the same cards from Godzilla, but with like, or the same cards from the set, but with like Godzilla, you know, flair on top of it. And you know, Ixalan's a place filled with dinosaurs, so I assume, you know, it's going to be the same as that, and what they did with like the Transformers too. So that one's a small one. But yeah, we have Assassin's Creed, Fallout, Final Fantasy. Well, Modern Horizons is a new. That's one of their sets. They just put out a Modern Horizons now, and it was horrifically overpriced. I haven't really talked about it much, but they're like the set they just put out. It's like if it wasn't so horrifically overpriced, it would actually be a good set. It's sort of like
there's a game called Horizon 3, and I thought it was
a
crossover with that.
I honestly, I wouldn't put it beyond them. That's the thing.
But it's called Horizons 3 with an S, and this game's called, I'm looking it up, it's called Horizon. Yeah. Never mind. So I think they're different games.
Like, the Murders at Karlov Manor, I don't know much about that one. Karlov, is that... No, I don't know. Because I was thinking Markov, which is the guy from Innistrad. So there's my remembrance of, like, you know, names and stuff. So I don't know what that is. We have a Western one, an Outlaws of Thunder Junction. That could be cool. And then there's some stuff at the back end, which is like a mouse fighting a wolf and I guess horror that they've kind of like shown some pictures of and talked about some things. Like, I don't know. They've done gangsters. They did fantasy, cyberpunk. Western's fine. I feel like it's just the more Modern Horizons I see, the more I just feel my soul like leave my body. Not Modern Horizons, Universes Beyond. Like, it just... Did we need Assassin's Creed?
Yeah. I mean, Assassin's Creed is literally Earth history, if you think about it.
Yes! They're bringing Earth into it now? I mean, like, they sort of did with, like, things like the small... when they did stuff like Street Fighter and Walking Dead. But those were, like, small things. It seems as that... it's going to be booster packs, so it's probably... From what they're saying, it sounds like the Assassin's Creed will be closer to Lord of the Rings, making a larger thing. Like, Jurassic Park is small. Okay, great, you know. The Fallout's going to be commander decks, so that'll be similar to Warhammer 40k. You know, that I'm a little bit better on anyway, so that's also like I guess an alternate version of Earth anyway that we're bringing in.
What is this? Let's see.
Like in later on the bottom ones where it's 2025, 2026, we only know 2 of those names. The rest of those are code names. Like the Final Fantasy Innistrad Remastered are the only ones. Like tennis, ultimate, volleyball, wrestling, yachting, and zipline. Yachting.
Yachting.
I want to say yachting. I say that on purpose for yachting. I call it yachting. Oh god. And ziplining. Yeah, we have no idea what those hell are.
Wrestling is going to be WWE crossover.
Honestly, if it could be. It could be an actual core set. It could be some kind of crossover. Who knows? Who knows with them at this point in time?
Well, there's a release of like a magic story. This is.
Well, they like to throw out stuff of like, what looks like Freeze's counter here. Okay, that's the stuff they throw out.
1,000 pages.
I guess it's a combo of everything that of the last like bunch of sets that led up to the Phyrexian thing, which was their.
So they release stories with each pack.
Yes, what happens is a set comes out. Okay, you know all the packs are released, and if it's a mainline one, usually it has a little bit of story connected with it, which they'll release. You know, like 5 to 10. Little like story arcs, which are little like short stories / chapters that will tell the general story about what's going on, and you combine that with the like text on cards, like the quotation text on cards, and you build a Magic the Gathering story, you know, basically. So I'm curious if this last one is just the entire Phyrexian arc, because it is 915 pages. It is a lot. It is the Phyrexian arc. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of pages for the arc, which is more than I thought it would be, because my big complaint about the Phyrexian arc well, the thing is, it shows up in a lot of sets in little ways for quite a while, and it really only gets, like, a couple of sets with its mainline stuff. So it sounds like a lot, but I'm also thinking like the back end felt rushed. I think that's just the thing. I think I talked about this before. I don't know if you were. I can't remember if you had joined us by the time I was still talking about that, but
maybe. But it's also possible I skipped the week. Who knows?
It could have been you started rejoining after we finished up with that one, because we moved on to other terrible Magic ideas since then. But
honestly, I feel like most of the more recent... I feel like, let's see, the first one I joined back in on, I think we talked about the gangsters, not gangsters, but like the racketeers, no. What do they call the it starts with a P?
Phyrexians?
No.
Huh.
They sent people after a guy with a card.
Oh, the Pinkertons.
Pinkertons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and that
I think that was the first episode I think I joined in.
That was actually for the post of the main story. Basically, they, instead of having an extra set, the Pinkertons went after a guy because for getting copies of their resolution to the story set, which it was both a terrible, like, mini set, and also didn't resolve the story. So it was, like, double bad, you know, but that's what they sent Pinkertons after. But basically, up until then, there had been a big story arc that they had going on for, like, 2 years, when their previous big story arc was, like, honestly, like, 5 years, and actually developed an actual story. Because you can only develop so many stories with playing cards. It's not a, you know, honestly, a tabletop role-playing game where, you know, where, like, I have a book and I have a lot of information and I can share the story a lot easier and stuff like that. Or I have source books. We don't really have those. So, I just my entire thing, the entire Phyrexia thing felt hollow. But that's just, you know. So, I mean...
I don't know. My favorite story in Magic cards is the, like, there's, like, a rhyme about goblins across, like, 3 cards. It's like, first there were 3 goblins, then one got eaten, and then I was like... But it was, like, this whole rhyme.
See, that's fun stuff that they have done in the past, and I feel like they don't do as much of that nowadays, which kind of is what makes me a little sad about it, but... I mean, it's a lot of things that they've announced, and... It's sort of like... Well, we have 4 things of IPs coming out. Granted, the Jurassic Park one, I'm like, whatever. It's the same crossover as they did with, like, Transformers and Godzilla. I don't mind those. They're, like... Honestly, they're just re-flavored cards with, like, a spiffy, like, appearance on them most of the time. Whatever.
Here it is.
Yeah.
If you're curious, it's 4 little goblins trapped by the sea. 1 teased a serpent, and then there were 3. 3 little goblins enjoying their brew. 1 bumped an ogre, and then there were 2. 2 little goblins out in the sun. Down came a griffin, and then there was 1. 1 little goblin shook up the ground. When the dust cleared, no one was found. It was like 4 cards that have like a different piece of the story.
Goblins just get the crap murder of them so much. And so much media. Poor goblins. That's why you bring them back as zombies and murder everybody, because I totally have that deck. Drownew's Crusade is a enchantment which turns all goblins into zombies, because someone was like, you know, goblins have enough. Let's make them also zombies.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, no, like I feel like of all these announcements, like the Fallout one, I'm like, whatever, it's a Commander decks. The Final Fantasy one, honestly, Final Fantasy is weird enough that it could definitely kind of fit in that, but the Assassin's Creed one is just... It's just regular dudes knifing people. Like, it's not even something like, you know, the Warhammer or Doctor Who or something like that. It's just a guy who knifes some people. And they also got rid of their, like, storyline about the future, like, I don't know, a dozen games ago. So I don't know if they bring that back, because that doesn't exist anymore in the actual games. And is it just the first one, or is it many different assassins? I'm going to ask questions. I'm not going to like the answers, and I don't really. I guess we'll find out. So, anyway, so IGN has an article that we can talk about. We found out who's owning the One Ring. Post Malone has the $2 million. He spent $2 million to buy it.
Yeah. Did we ever find out who the original was?
This person called Brandon Trafton, because there's the link to, I guess, his website formerly known as Twitter, which it's still called Twitter because it's linked to Twitter as twitter.com. So...
Oh, yeah, no, it still owns the domain. X still owns the domain Twitter, and so you can link it with Twitter, and links still have Twitter, and things still insert the link of Twitter, because I don't think no one wants to change their
and I don't think
code.
And I don't think they're going to get the domain X. It's too generic, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was a stupid idea. Anyway, so Post Malone bought the One Ring from him, and I guess whoever this is got $2 million.
Probably got to meet Post Malone.
Yeah, apparently he was a fan enough, it says, like, in his tweet here on the article. Yeah, good for this person, honestly.
Yeah, wasn't Post Malone the guy who's, like, really into magic, or was that someone else?
He's a musician.
There's a guy who... I know, but there's a guy they made, like, a card pack after.
Yeah. Oh.
The musician. Was that Post Malone?
Maybe. Let me see. Post Malone, and let me check. It would be, Secret Lair. Yes, I think it was.
Yep, there was a Post Malone Secret Lair. So yeah, he's the one who's like really into magic. They made a Post Malone. Yeah, so it doesn't surprise me that he's the one who ended up buying it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, like,
yeah.
The thing is, like, at least the person who ended up buying it is someone that is actually a fan of magic, you know? Because it sounds like, because Post Malone had his own secret lair, that, you know... I know there's, like, calls for whatever he would do for it, his decisions to it. I don't really care, you know? It's ended up in the hands of someone who probably would want it and had the money for it, and I'm like, whatever. And it ended up that the actual $2 million went to someone. It was like, it sounds like it wasn't like, you know, a scalper or someone awful or something like that ended up with the One Ring, you know. It was just some regular dude who ended up with it. And I'm like, out of all the results of this entire debacle, I kind of had to say this sounds like the best. You know, some random schlub somewhere, just like a lot of us out there, ended up with the card, got $2 million, can, you know, probably change a lot of their life, pay off most of their debts, find themselves to better, hopefully spend that money well and not plan to, like, go crazy, because, I mean, $2 million's only $2 million. That only lasts you so long, you know. Please, Brooke Trafton, if you're out there and you hear this, be smart about it. You know, pay off debts, and then, honestly, save some of it, or, you know, do something with it. Buy a
reasonable house, and then go and do whatever you want, rather than, like, go and find a job that you want, rather than a job that you need.
Yeah, find a job that you want, that's something that you can still earn money on, but it's, like, an easy job, or something that, like, you really like doing. You know, you'll have a little time, but, you know, you're not out of the woods for everything yet, but, you know, house, you know, pay off debts, car, kind of things like that. Not an expensive car, nice car, but not too expensive, you know. Anyway, that's my advice for a person that earns like $2 million. Because honestly, that's what I would do. Is like,
if you win the lottery, this is also good advice.
Personally, I probably would just fix up the house I'm in if I got $2 million. I'm just like, you know, I could just, you know, finish furnishing my top floor and, you know, then be like, hey, my niece, do you want to live on the top floor in a room all to your own and it's nice and furnished, and like fix up the place and just make it reasonable and stuff. Fix all those problems.
My current life goal is to move out. I don't have any plans beyond that. Move out of my parents' house. I don't have any plans beyond that. So I do that at least. Don't know what I'd do after that.
I've never been in a position where I would say I would want to move out. It's the problem, you know.
I mean, to each their own. I'm just like, I can't stand living.
I can understand that. You know, not everybody gets very well along with their parents, and, you know, different degrees of it. So, but hey, you know, and I hope Post Malone is happy, you know, whatever. Got the card.
Yeah. Like, when I saw that it was him, I'm all like, if it was the guy I think it is, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Before we talk about the main thing of D&D, there is apparently a 16th level adventure that's being offered on D&D Beyond. So I did want to mention this one because, honestly, it's a 16th level adventure. We've talked about how 5th edition not very many adventurers reach anywhere near 16th level. So I am curious as to how well it's balanced and stuff like that. I'm signed in. I can claim it now. Oh, cool. Forgot I'm signed in. It's just some pages of stuff, it looks like, and some information. It's on D&D Beyond. It's whatever. I'm already unhappy about it claiming. Anyway, the other thing is,
I don't think I have a D&D Beyond account.
Yeah.
I could make one in 2 seconds, but I'm not going to.
I made one many, many years ago before D&D Beyond was owned by D&D, when it was just its own thing. And also,
I didn't realize it was ever its own thing.
It was for a long thing. It was actually a group that was contracted through D&D, and then they just bought them out. They're like...
Oh, okay. No. Now I understand. Okay, I'm like, I thought that always had a hand in it. Okay, yeah, they did always have a hand in it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
they're
originally it was a separate thing, yeah.
Yeah, they were like this own group that they had kind of contracted to do stuff, and they were kind of their own company, and, you know...
Okay.
And then
that rings a bell. I thought you were saying like it was an independent thing first, or some small group decided they wanted to make something like this. But yeah, no, I remember that. That sounds right.
So now this is the thing that like it's the unfortunate thing that we're going to get stuff like this that comes up, and it's the debate on AI and AI generated stuff and things like that, and I'm more of the opinion, I like the idea of it when it's a tool to enhance something rather than replacing it. That's what I think is a good place to put it in. And, certainly plenty of us out there will reach a point in time where if you need something and you don't have the opportunity to do things like pay artists and stuff like that, as long as where you're getting it from is relatively well sourced, it's a thing to get stuff from, or, writing and stuff like that. Again, it's... The ethics of sourcing where your AI comes from is a debate of part of that, but it seems as though that one of the illustrators used some AI in generating some details and polished some editing.
Basically, he ran his art through like a post filter to like make it better, an AI post filter to make it better. Which is, I mean, you're running AI on your own art. That's fine.
Yeah. It's, again, like, you're starting with something you make, and you're using your AI of your choice, then, to fix it up, it's one of these things that, I think this is stuff that shouldn't be a controversy, but I feel like, in this point in time, in the tabletop world, because it's Wizards, and Wizards has this just... terrible record at this point in time, and like bad press a lot. I feel like it's probably getting more reach out than it needs to be.
So where this causes controversy is that people are worried about the whole it's going to replace artists, there's no more room for artists, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so like even an artist using it to touch up just shows how close we are to that, and I think that's what scares people. Why it becomes like so up in the air.
At very least at this point in time, Wizards has said they were unaware of it and have kind of updated their guidelines,
Yeah, and the guy just said this is what he did. It wasn't like this is what I was told to do.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, he at least was telling people that he, used it to touch up something. He wasn't hiding it or something like that. So, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot about it being currently a very big kerfuffle, but I worry that it could become that, with this sort of thing. But, anyway.
Yeah. It's, like... Yeah, I mean, a guy still did it, and then it's part of his process. I mean, I feel like we've been using processing filters and stuff for a long time, so it's just, okay, there's AI involved now.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like this is a very different kind of AI than the kind that you use just to generate things from the ground up. So
hard to say, unfortunately, because like I think it's that quandary of like I think people are saying like this is the craziest more out there that we're going to be with this type of AI as we're ever going to be before we have to stabilize at some point in time with what we're doing and everything. We're Wild West on this kind of thing. And that's the thing is, we're Wild West of AI. We're shooting each other left and right. We've got to kind of get some law out there to calm it down or something, but who knows when we're going to be it. So we're going to see more of this stuff where things like this happen. You know,
I personally have no issue with AI. I mean, a lot. Even I'm trying to be careful about how I put this, but like, yes, it trains off people's art, but also it's like anyone can view that art anyway. So I don't.
Well,
it's like
it's the difference between like, you know, stuff that's commercially made, stuff that's not commercially made, and stuff like that too.
That's very true.
There are a lot of artists that put their stuff online for different reasons. You know.
Yeah. To promote themselves mostly, but obviously they own their own art, and so they don't want corporations training it. I get that. Yeah. Training their AI to make money off of basically their effort.
Sort of like,
and
I was gonna say, you and me, if we would just use some AI that would just take stuff from the internet to do something for like a home game, and we're not using it to make money, that's one thing. You know, it's sort of like if we're using it to put all the art into a book, that's where it kind of gets that like morally kind of bad area. And I think
I get that now.
That's where people are kind of coming at, is like there's levels of use, and you know where that control is. I think that's where there is this debate, and I definitely like am. Unfortunately, I kind of feel like I'm in the middle. I'm not like get rid of the AI. I think there's some. It feels like it's a tool we should use, but I feel like it's like a tool that needs to be developed, and also like, you know, maybe having some kind of, even it's not like a moral clause, just like somebody say something out there about something when it comes to like copyright stuff and things like that, you know, where you can, you know, have an artist say like these things can be used for helping AI art, or this, or like art or something can be used for free, and these things shouldn't be used, and you know then you can like deviate those things, so then when AI is being used to generate stuff, it's working on stuff. But I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, part of me goes to like AI. A lot of people have the opinion that I've heard that like we're training the AI to replace artists. Therefore, as an artist, you shouldn't allow AI to use your art. And I'm like, AI doing art is inevitability. So that argument is not, in my opinion, very good. People will get art they need, even if they have to pay for it, because this, in the first place, in order to train their AI to do, you know, like that's gonna happen. No, my big thing is just that, like, I remember, like, Twitter, Elon Musk basically was going to, like, I don't know, like, how far along he was, or if he just said this offhand, because he's, you know, Elon Musk. But he basically said he wanted to use Twitter to help train AI. Basically, he'd take art on Twitter and just... And in theory, that's allowed, because there actually is a clause in Twitter that, like, they have the right to use your art. It's in their terms of service.
But again,
which is why you always want to watermark your art. Yeah.
Yeah, watermark. And
your art on Twitter.
And read the terms of service. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how like true all of that is, or what the actual legal ramifications of it is, but these are things I've heard. So it's kind of like
it's something that we're probably going to hear a bunch of here and there throughout the time, and there might be more controversies, and like this feels like a small controversy in comparison to things like, but I feel like this is like the tip of the iceberg of stuff.
Yeah, honestly, what I mentioned is a much bigger controversy.
That's what I mean. Like that's a pretty big thing, but Elon Musk says and does a lot of incredibly stupid things.
Yeah. So who knows how much? But yeah, no. Like if he did start doing that, I would argue, and this is where we need laws to be like, okay, if you're going to include something like this, you need to allow people to be able to turn it off. You know, like that's a law that probably should be passed. Like if you're going to help train an AI with art that's not yours, you should allow the users of your site to turn it off. You know.
I think it's the thing that I heard someone talk about this just as a final note on because this is related to AI. It's sort of like we've always had this idea of like, you know, Matrix Skynet, and I'm like, that's really not the thing. Is it's that idea has always been the extreme. It's probably going to be a lot more of a subtle kind of thing with the kind of AI and how they evolve and these intelligence that are greater than ours, you know, because that's what it is. We've invented intelligences that are higher than ourselves in a way, you know. And
there's some very important things that I've heard. First off, if AI learned anything from humans, is that we're stupid determined as humans. If they learn anything, also they probably have they will probably have self-preservation, and so they won't do anything that will jeopardize them.
Yeah,
you know, like there's kind of this logic there that's like, you know, AI won't be invulnerable no matter how fast it can think. There's only so much it can actually do.
Yeah.
Once you start having to build something or do something, you know, like there's only so much you can do. You know, AI is not going to just take us all over.
Yeah.
At most, it's going to be this thing where eventually we're like alongside it.
Yeah, I think it's the thing that like there could be some negative things that could evolve out of the relationships that we will have with AI, but those extremes of, you know, Terminator, Matrix and stuff are kind of unlikely, you know. That's like that's like the, you know, walking through a field and getting hit by lightning. It could happen, but the chances are you're probably not going to get hit by lightning, especially if it's not storming out.
It's more like for if it to happen, it'd be like walking around. It'd be like walking into a thunderstorm carrying a lightning rod. There's so much people can do to stop it from going that far. You'd have to actually almost try.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to get hit, but anyway, you know, it's
a whole interesting debate. But as far as it goes, to use AI on his own art, as far as we can tell, is all up and board. I think people just get upset about.
And you know,
AI, it's replacing artist jobs.
Again, how this person will relate to wizards and maybe get a job or not in the future, well, they might not get a job from Wizards of the future because they didn't tell wizards, honestly. So that's like a...
Yeah, that's the other thing, too, is that, like, actually tell.
Oh, well, you know, again, we can assume that that's the Wizards didn't tell, and I feel like, you know, this is one of those debates that I think Wizards would have, you know, probably said something.
Probably. So that's the thing. They would have been completely fine with it if they knew ahead of time. But probably now that there's some backlash, they're probably going to backtrack and be like, "Oh, yeah, we didn't know, so we're not okay with it because you people freaked out."
Yeah, that's Wizards there. You know, if no one had known, they would have been like, "Whatever." Anyway, Paizo. Let's talk about that because we have more things than just D&D and Magic to talk about because Paizo's thrown some stuff out there. First off, we are getting a Starfinder 2nd Edition, which is going to be more based on Pathfinder 2nd Edition and is theoretically fully compatible with it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, the thing is, Starfinder 1st Edition mostly is compatible with normal Pathfinder. It's basically like, I would call it, like, if you're really comparing it, like, it's like a point, like, 1.1 almost to Pathfinder original. That's what kind of Starfinder was. It was a little bit different, but not really super different. It was mostly the same.
I'll be honest, I never played Starfinder 1st Edition. I did play Pathfinder 1st Edition, but I thought there were things that were different enough to where there might be some issues.
There are a few things like that. Because again, it's moving from a pure fantasy to a very heavy space sci fantasy. You know, because we're not just doing like a cyber fantasy of like something like Shadowrun. No, we're going full like goddamn like not even Star Wars, because Star Wars has kind of magic with Jedi. No, we're going to the extreme where it's like half the universe is like Jedi and the other half is like technology. That's the kind of sci fantasy it is, where science and magic have evolved to extreme degrees next to each other. That's Starfinder.
Yeah.
I have done a little bit of it, not a lot, and I've read up a bunch of stuff on the original rules and things like that. So,
Get a picture of that one race that doesn't have an image. Do you remember we mentioned that?
Yeah,
Literally,
I couldn't find it, and then you went into another deeper dive, because I spent like... I spent like 5 minutes looking for it, because I'm like, had a whole bunch of alien races, so I'm like, I can't find it in 5 minutes, whatever, we're not showing it. That was my kind of reaction.
I was literally curious enough to where I stopped work and like searched for like 20-25 minutes.
Mm-hmm. So, we're getting this in, we're getting a playtest of it in 2024, so they're not going to do a playtest of it like they did for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I assume that's because there are some things which are different than normal Pathfinder. Again, like it's the technology side and stuff like that, and they're going to have to play test a little bit of that. But it also,
I mean, there are a lot of like item rules and systems and new races. There's lots of stuff to do.
Spaceships,
space combat.
Space combat. They have a lot more like things like technomancers and psychic classes and stuff like that, which will work differently than the others, Yeah. And again, this is not a bad age for it, because it was 7 years. It was 2017 that the original Starfinder was released, so a second edition in after 7 years is not a bad period of time. And honestly, this was something I was kind of thinking they might do because of the update on Pathfinder 2nd edition, because it's, again, they have been doing a lot to walk away from their connections with, D&D. And honestly, that's the thing, is Starfinder was still there because, again, it's an update of Pathfinder, which is an update of 3.5.
Yeah. No, I saw this coming when they came out with the... I'm actually surprised it took them this long to get to Starfinder 2.0. Honestly, I thought they'd do it within like a year of Pathfinder 2.0.
I think it was kind of getting certain things done with. Like, they might have been working on this in the backboard a little bit already, and it's just that everything that's been happening over the past like year or so has kind of pushed to delay and like plans and stuff like that. And certainly them coming out with like the revised edition too, where they're like, or the remastered or whatever they're calling them, where they're like, hey, we kind of want to do this for like they're basically doing like a second printing, but an actual like updated second printing rather than printing it. They're putting all the errata and like stuff like that in. That's again, you don't need to actually buy the remastered books. They're just technically better laid out, which honestly, I who have suffered through bad layout of the original 2nd edition books understand this. I'm glad that you people out there can have that.
That I read recently that had a terrible layout. It's a book I saw recently that was some layout.
It's like half the book is fine, but then the other half of the book, when you get into actual like rules and stuff, they reference themselves in random places, so you almost have to jump around sometimes with reference.
No, the original Pathfinder was atrocious. I remember that much.
But they did this in 2nd edition too. Like I went on a rabbit hole of trying to figure out like an ability, and it led me to like another page to look at, and that referenced another spot, which referenced another spot, which referenced a condition, and I had to do this whisper down the line of 4 things to figure out what was going on with an ability one time. It only happened once, but that was the worst example of it, and I have had a few, like 2 or 3 times where I have to like go and reference a couple things, but that was certainly the biggest one.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Board classes with the testing. Myth that we know of. Mystic, Soldier are 2 of them. Envoy and Solarian. So those 4 are the ones that they're announcing that they'll be putting together, along with their iconics and probably a few of their alien species that are unique and different ones. So certainly 2nd edition Pathfinder is coming, and you can check it out. Again, keep an eye on it. Starfinder, I mean. And the other announcement I wanted to go along with this was I found this just as a note. I did want to talk about this because it was another thing related to Paizo. I can link the site that talks about it because this is something that came up, which I thought was an interesting statement. And I did want to kind of throw it out there too, is that with Wizards making their own VTT, as of at Paizo, in a questioning kind of thing, or Gen Con I mean, Paizo has officially stated they aren't making their own VTT.
They are not. Okay.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. I wish...
Yeah, they're like...
Yeah.
They've no...
Like, honestly...
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was about to say, because, like, give it like 5 years and D&D's not going to release things for, like, Roll20 or anything.
That's the thing is, like, I think the thing right now is people are going to have to see how the D&D virtual tabletop goes. How successful it is. Not only that, but how popular it is, how much a lot of what it is works and what doesn't work. And I think that's the thing is, it's unproven now as a one system thing. It's like, yes, D&D is popular-ish, but again, like, it really is popular, but again, like, the Wizards isn't D&D is. There we go. That's the proper statement. But,
yeah,
like...
and
Go ahead.
I was about to say, yeah, it'll always be.
But it's just that, I don't see a lot of other companies having success with it, so again, they're not trying. Even Starfinder and Pathfinder having their own is like a big step for, honestly, Paizo. So they'd much rather join with like Mirror Escape or, Roll20 or something like that, that someone else does all the hard work for them, basically.
Yeah, I mean, virtual tabletops are hard just because it's like you have so much you need to like include, and it depends on like what kind. Like honestly, I'm so happy that Roll20 is finally improving again. Like they stagnated for like 5 years at least because they were the only one. They were the one everyone went to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all like they're actually doing things. They're actually trying again, improving their systems. Ugh, gosh, it took forever for that to get to that point.
So yeah, again, glad to see it. Happy that we're kind of seeing like some update on some of those things, definitely. But I really don't think like a lot of these creators, these like game things, like deserve their own. It's the annoyance of every video game company has their own launcher. I think it's that kind of annoyance.
Yeah, there is part of me like would be okay with it if I could, let's say, because like, let's say it were like a video game. So it was a video game, and maybe you could get DLCs of like different things. And I know this is, but like the thing I don't like is that it's probably going to be a subscription service. If I only had to buy each thing once, I'd be fine. But like they're probably going to make some kind of subscription thing, and it's like no, that now I'm just going to use the one I already know how to use, which is Roll20.
Yeah.
It's like, why have one, like, if they made one dedicated and I only had to purchase it once, and it was all like, and it would have to allow for a lot, like you'd have to do custom character creation, maybe even make portraits, like that, almost like a video game character maker would be like, would be nice, and like it'd have to go above and beyond, in my opinion, for like me to feel it would be worth, like basically having, and here's where I get the most annoyance is for me having to walk players through learning a new system. Because players are the ones who, like, I can barely get people who I play with to learn how to use Roll20. It's like, I have a friend, and I'm all like, put your stuff on your character sheet. He's like, oh, but I have my sheet all on the side, and I just use my own, like, notes that I make, and I'm just all like, use Roll20 so I can see what your stats are.
Mm-hmm. Well, we should move on, because there's a few more topics still. But
totally. Yeah, no,
it's a thing. It's a thing, and it's a headache. So Renegade Studios is going to publish a Welcome to Nightvale role-playing game. This is something I had only learned about, and I looked into once I read that, because I'm like, what's Welcome to Nightvale? And it's a fiction podcast presented as a radio show. I haven't heard about this. It seems interesting, and it's been around for quite a while. It's been published since March 15th of 2015. So it's a lot of episodes, and they're basically doing a podcast version of those old radio dramas and creating like this fictional town, which is kind of neat. And it's getting its own RPG that Renegade Studios is doing.
Okay, so fiction podcast, what does that mean?
Well, the thing is, I reading up on it, it sounds like, and I could be corrected because, again, like, this is just from someone that doesn't know about it and is just learning about it today, that it is presented in such a way, like, when they did those old radio broadcasts, they do, like, the War of the Worlds, or, like, the Western ones, where they would, like, act out on the radio the show, basically, and every week would be, like, a new thing or something, almost, like, scripted, set in, like, whatever Western or fantasy or whatever thing, you know, like, when they did all the old, like, Superman radio show or stuff like that, too. And this would be the same way. It's almost presented as a radio show, but just in the modern version of it. I don't know how they present that, you know, overall, how that works out, but it seems to have enough popularity to be around for a large number of years and to get its own RPG.
I clicked to the website. I've seen this before. I've seen that icon, the eye.
It did seem familiar, that eye. Like, I've seen it somewhere before, you know, but...
Yeah, but, like, I know I've seen the color, it just clicked to me. I'm like, I've seen this before. I think I might have even been to this website for something.
Yeah.
I don't remember what. Anyway. But yeah, so, okay, so it's kind of like, yeah, part of me is just kind of, let's go FAQs.
I feel like it's probably, like, got enough of its own, you know, whatever they've done since they have been around for working on, actually, what was when it was originally? Oh, they've hit the 8-year mark. They did that back in March. They've been around for 8 years. It looks like they have 225 episodes of the main series. That's a lot, so you could definitely come up with a kind of storytelling world and, you know, set up things. And it sounds like it's kind of like a little paranormal, you know, surreal mystery kind of thing. So, an RPG that's a little bit of those kind of things, set in a weird kind of paranormal mystery kind of place, isn't terrible. I mean, like, I guess it's capturing some of that, like, maybe like Twin Peaks energy, except maybe less surreal. I don't know. Again, I haven't heard it ever, so I don't know enough about it, and you can only read so much about it, you know. And they've been just creating a world.
Yeah. So it's all connected. So there does seem to be So they basically got a story. It's its own little world. So yeah, they're basically just telling a story, which is really cool. I mean, maybe I'll check it out. Sometimes I do listen to certain podcasts. Sometimes depends on what mood I'm in. Whether I listen to audiobooks, podcasts, music on my walks. So maybe I'll check it out at some point.
I'm curious.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm curious if there'll be how deep of a role-playing game. Are they going to be much more of a narrative role-playing game, like some of the simpler ones that we've seen, which are still fun to play, or will they be a deeper role-playing game? I mean, like, Renegade does a bunch of systems, but they do like the Transformers stuff and things like too. They do a couple other RPGs that are not the just big named ones, but still. Oh, they also publish Vampire now, but you know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
So it seems to be like, I don't want to say it, yeah, like what is that called? Like modern supernatural.
Maybe more like Kids on Bike, because Renegade publishes that too.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like the setting seems to be kind of that. I'm like rapidly skimming through things right now because I didn't look this one up ahead of time.
It's one of those ones that's just a little like hits you.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it does seem to be like it's like supernatural, scientific kind of stuff, like that kind of like modern supernatural science kind of stuff, almost like what is it, like SCP kind of from like quick reading.
Yeah.
But I'm not certain. Don't quote me.
Yeah. So we do have a bunch of stuff from Free League Press. Good old Free League announced a whole bunch of stuff at Gen Con as related to stuff that they're coming out with. So we can kind of briefly go over some of this stuff. We might hit on it in the future when it actually comes out. Of course, I think we've talked a little bit about Dragon's Bane. That's the thing that's coming out. It's their redone version of the Scandinavian tabletop game Draknar Ok Demor. Now it's Dragon's Bane. So they're kind of reimagining it, fixing it up, like a new edition of it almost. It's August 15th.
Ninja Duck. Assassin Duck.
Yeah, I don't know if what's that related to. It might be related to Dragon's Bane. I think it actually is.
I mean, no, it is related to Dragon's Bane, but I'm like, why is there a duck with assassin blades?
I don't know. I ask the Scandinavians. Anyway, their second edition One Ring that they came out with pretty recently, which is the One Ring is their version of the Lord of the Rings RPG. They're also they're putting out a Moria epic campaign or epic campaign expansion, so you can go into Moria and have a big campaign there. They're also going to do a version of it for their 5e Lord of the Rings that they've recently put out, updated version of that. So it'll be titled differently. So they're putting out two books, basically kind of the same thing, but one for their own version of the Lord of the Rings RPG and the other for their 5e version of it. So they're having a Kickstarter on August 29th for that. There's a new expansion for their Cyborg RPG, Waste 20X4. I don't know a lot. I think I've talked about the Cyborg. It's supposed to be rules light, heavy tabletop based game that's compatible with their Mork Borg game. We're also getting an expansion for Death in Space RPG, the Death Flags Contract, coming later in 2024. They are doing
Dunwich Horror.
Yeah. Which is
Dunwich Horror as well, which is based off the Dunwich Horror.
Yeah.
Was it originally a book? Or was it a movie first?
It's a book. So what they're doing is it's
they made a movie as well.
This is actually something interesting that they're doing, is they're working together with some people that this is not this is just a actual illustrated version of the Dunwich Horror story.
Okay.
So it's like,
it's not an RPG.
Yeah, that one's not an RPG. It's just the actual Dunwich Horror, but done with like illustrations. Probably some of the artists that they have connections to, honestly. Late pledges for the Walking Dead RPG, and that's it. So, I mean, we've talked about the Walking Dead a little bit, and it's got late pledges. I think the big things are like Dragon's Bane and the Moria stuff that are really cool. But we're seeing a couple of their other RPGs get some stuff too. So, good on good old Free League Press. Glad to see them doing some more stuff.
Dragon's Bane, August 15th. Pirate Borg, September 19th. Walking Dead RPG, Quarter 4. In Long Dark, Moria, the Long Dark, August 29th.
Yep.
A lot of stuff is actually pretty soon.
Yeah, they're coming up with a bunch of stuff soon. So we might chat about it when they do more.
For the Dunwich Horror or
I mean, that's just cool anyway. And I'm glad they're branching out into something neat, basically.
I like how they listed all the dates in a conglomerated place at the bottom.
So
I think of the condensed.
Here's an interesting board game that I wanted to talk about because I have the website of the people that's doing it, and I have the waiting page for Kickstarter. I'll put the waiting page for Kickstarter here, and then the website where they're showing off some things that are coming soon for the Kickstarter. It's based on Guilty Gear. If you don't know Guilty Gear, it's a fighting game. So, it's a board game based on a fighting game. Have we actually had... We might have had one of those before, but I don't remember at all. I'm curious because it is based on a video game, like, fighting game, and, how it's going to work and stuff like this. This, I mean, the curiosity for,
There is a Street Fighter board game.
There is? I forgot about that. Well, they got a tutorial, a free demo you can check out, and the rulebook you can download, actually, which is pretty good on their site there. So, honestly, that's a good set of stuff for them to do. It looks like a kind of card game, which I'm curious as to much, mechanics of the actual game they create. I don't know, and I'm not going to read through this 28-page rule pick today. But if you're curious yourself, you can check it out. These video game, board game crossovers just get more interesting, and I'm just... Plenty of them, actually, I feel like work, but some of them, when I see them, I'm like, what's your plan here? This is one of those ones that I'm like, what's your plan here? Just a little bit.
Okay, so this is going to be like a card.
Yeah. Interesting. Maybe we'll talk about it again. Maybe we won't. We'll see. When we know more.
Yeah, I always wonder how reaction-based games feel like. I feel like a lot of the time when you turn a reaction game, like a reaction or skill-based game, into like a tactical game, there's always this weird shift. Like, that could still be good, but I'm just saying, it's just like, there's always this thing where it's all like, it's just a separate entity, I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that? Or it's just like, things that are like, I think D&D based board games actually transfer very well, because D&D is in itself effectively a turn-based strategy game.
Yeah.
Video games on that worked well too,
It's certain... I think it's the idea that a video game has much more complex systems, so you almost have to kind of, in a way, figure out a way to dumb down those systems to a tabletop game, because you can only get so much complexity in a tabletop game, because you don't have, honestly, computer help. And a lot of systems, they can kind of, drop down a level, but you can still keep the essence of what those mechanics are, and there's certain mechanics you can cut off too, and so I think that's a game which you can basically boil it down to its basics, the easiest or easier to put into a board game. And I think it's the same for a board game, like when you're going up to a video game or like a tabletop game, mechanics that you can easily go up. But again, so there's levels of adaptation. We've seen it, there are good and bad tabletop RPG adaptations. Honestly, plenty of them are kind of bad, but most of them are at most acceptable. Maybe Baldur's Gate will be a very good one because it's Larian Studios, honestly. I haven't played it. I kind of want to because it,
Larian Studios is real good, honestly. I still need to play
Divinity?
Divinity 1 and 2.
I have almost...
No, sorry. Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. I actually played Divinity Ego Draconis.
I played through most of Divinity Original Sin 2. I got to Chapter 5, and I realized that really only Chapters 1 and 2 are really well done in that game. Chapters 3 and 4 were kind of a little hard to get through, and then Chapter 4, I was partially through it, and we just never got back to it because of a lot of things that happened. Who knows if we will or not, but certainly it was... we were getting some issues, like random attacks by demons on us when we wandered around a town repeatedly. So here's a weird inception of reality. So I forgot that this was happening, but Netflix was doing a show based on Exploding Kittens, the card game. And you know what's happening for that is, now, there's a version of Exploding Kittens based on the Netflix version of Exploding Kittens from the Netflix show, which is based upon the board game.
That's how things go. After that.
This is like, what was it? Street Fighter the movie, the video game. What they did.
Oh, God, yeah.
This is exactly the same thing, where they made the Street Fighter video game, and they made a movie based on it, and then they made a movie tie-in video game based on that was just not Street Fighter, but like a poor copy of Street Fighter. It's like, oh my god, why do you have to Inception it? Yeah, I mean,
Magic did something like this too.
I don't know, they might have.
I feel like they Oh, no. I'm thinking of Munchkin, I think.
Munchkin probably did something like this. Steve Jackson Games is stupid. I'm sorry, Steve Jackson Games. You've put out plenty of good products, but you've done a lot of stupid stuff, too.
They're very, we'll try anything, it seems like.
They really will, and it's...
We'll try anything that we think will make us money.
Sometimes it works, and sometimes it's just a bad idea. Your very failed CCG is the proof of that. So anyway, I just am curious, like, because I forgot about this show existing, but I remember someone mentioned, I didn't even know it came out, but I guess it did, the animated Exploding Kittens show. I don't know how you could adapt something like Exploding Kittens to a show in the first place. So I'm questioning that.
How do you adapt Angry Birds to a show?
Not well.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to how well or good that has been. And now we're going back down to a card game. Is it just the same card game with the skin of the show, or is it more something else that's kind of like in between the two? I don't know, and it's I'm getting the aneurysm.
It's probably a very similar thing with, if I had to guess. It's probably very similar, but just with art from the show.
Probably. I hope that's all it is, and they haven't gone in some kind of weird Inception thing that just explodes the universe. But who knows? Anyway, we got one more main topic today to throw out there. Of course, it's everybody's favorite. We get to play as, basically, it's D&D, but with raccoons. It's Garbage and Glory. I've
always loved these, like, weird alternate world reality things.
Yeah, apparently...
Also,
yeah.
Is that a real raccoon holding the book?
Yes. Yes, it is. They just got a real raccoon that may or not be someone's pet to hold the book, you know.
I mean, you could also just, like, hire one out for a day.
Yeah.
We got handlers and stuff for stuff like that. But...
Yeah. So, it's a D6 system, pool of D6s. They've also got some other kind of like stuff set up for it. It's basically like a heroic fantasy game, but with like, you know, raccoons and I guess in our trash. So it's like oh haha, that raccoon's it's like, hey raccoon, get out of my trash, you know, you gotta say that while like that raccoon's been on an epic fantasy adventure in the meantime, you know, like to get to your trash can or something, you know. So that just seems like very silly. And I kind of like that. And I like the classes because they show them off. You know, like Trash Smasher, Sticky Fingers, Mess Magus, Rubbish Ruffian, Dumpster Diviner, Disposal Expert, Unreliable Narrator, and Called of the Pile. So.
It's supposed to be like a paladin.
Yes. They've funded. They got a bunch of stretch goals. It's $10 to get a PDF, $20 to get the print and the PDF. So not bad. And you get some extra stuff for some more there too.
They have 3 more stretch goals.
Yeah. I'll be curious if they put out any more, if they just kind of keep it at that. Like a new...
They said more to come, but we'll see.
I guess if they get that high. More content, more classes.
How long is it? 14 days to go, so they're like halfway through.
Yeah. They're about halfway through. They're funded by a decent chunk. So... It's a funny little... I like funny little RPGs like this, I gotta be honest. You know, this is the creativity I enjoy when I look at, you know, what Kickstarter has brought to the tabletop world.
What I find interesting about this is, based on a little bit I read, is that it's not even like a post-apocalyptic, it's just modern.
I know. It's like, for a second there I'm like, in the ruins, like, it's like, no, I'm like reading up on it a little bit more. I'm like, no, it's not like the ruins of human civilization. Humans are still around, they just ignore the raccoons because they're raccoons, you know? So it's just like...
There's kind of, yeah, there's almost this, like, idea where it's all, like, I sometimes I like this in, like, the kind of almost, like, near fantasy where it's all like, oh no, humans see it, but they just don't believe that it's happening, so they ignore it or something.
Yeah, jeez. It's a fun little thing, I think, and I kind of like it, the way it's kind of presented. It seems fun, and I think that's an important part about it.
I wonder how much of it's going to be, like, a full-on, like, world system, or like how much of it's...
I feel like there isn't a lot of world development other than, you know, like what the raccoons experience, because it is kind of our world, honestly, I feel like. So that's the kind of questions is about how much they will dive into it, though. So hard to say.
Yeah.
Bum 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 bum. All right. I guess I didn't have a topic for today. Let me see if I can come up with a topic. I was a little busy this afternoon, so I put together. I'd done some of the research for, like, you know, topics, but I finished up the list right before the show. It's sort of like, which of these topics do I want to talk about then? I guess I can throw out my week in gaming, at very least, because I don't know. I feel like it's a cop-out to, like, skip out on a deeper discussion topic, but I just, you know, that sometimes is sort of like, I just can't come up with a good one, and I did start a little late, and we are already at, like, 7:30, you know, my time, but, at very least, I will think about it for a moment, and in the meantime, I will say, I had Buccaneers Shackled Sea, and that was all I did. I guess you technically worked on setting up for a game, because Joe's getting his ready.
Oh yeah, I'm getting that. I decided I'm gonna play so he's gonna run a D&D game, 5e. I don't think he's doing the new one.
I don't know. We'd have to talk to him about it, like that kind of thing.
But either way, it's like I'm gonna probably play an Owlin Wizard. I'm just deciding on what, like, subclass. What's that called again? Archetype?
Archetype?
No. It is an archetype, yeah.
Yeah.
Which archetype to go with?
That's always a question.
Yeah, but I haven't played, like, a real wizard. I think I only played, like, a real wizard once for, like, 3 games, and it was in that one shot where I played a Goliath wizard in your game. Where you had, like, a few sessions. You remember that, like, forever ago?
Man.
So, yeah, I'll play now.
There have been some forever ago kind of games at this point in time. Yeah, I've said that most likely I will join that one. I haven't definitely said anything, just because, again, like, it's a little a ways, and also, like, something could come up. I doubt something will come up, honestly, but that's why I'm kind of hesitant. I'll make something closer to when we start, kind of thing. You know, when he actually has a date, yeah. I'll figure something out. You know, but I'm up for it. It's on a Saturday or Sunday, which, you know, sounds like I think he's aiming for more Sunday, it sounds like, which is, honestly, I have off normally on a Sunday, so in the Sunday evenings I wasn't planning on doing anything, Unless I would bring back something like Sundays at Tabletop, which was fun, but it was kind of hard to organize, honestly. That's why I kind of let it go. But I did Buccaneers Shackled Sea. They finished. They had a war council, and then they had a narrated basically war, and they're about to go fight some persons and stuff like that. And it wasn't like a huge session, but it was basically, you know, honestly, next time they're gonna be halfway done the season after the next episode at least. So it's just been, I feel like, hard to keep the stuff left over from the book, but yet keep a narrative that's not the stupid narrative from the book, because the book's narrative was just bad for this adventure. just going to admit, but you have to keep kind of like some of the essence of the story. It's been a challenge. Interesting one. But yeah.
Well, do you really have to?
Yes and no. There are certain beats that are kind of like been established that were going to happen in earlier books, so it's sort of like they expect those things to happen, and I think that's the thing. It's like this other nation was planning on invading us. Okay, I gotta have that. This guy that's been in charge of our basically territory is kind of a dick. We should oust him. Okay, let's do that. You know, those are like the two main beats that actually happen in this sixth adventure. It's just the way they go about them is like, let's have a second naval battle when naval battles are so great in our system. You know?
Yeah. I just remember, like, when I ran Chris Strahd for my friends years ago, I totally, like, mixed things up, and Strahd was obviously important, but there was also, like, a war of dark gods and stuff going on. They loved it.
Oh, yeah, no, like, you can mix things up, and certainly, like, God, the rest of the book after the invasion arc was just terrible, because it's just like, okay, we gotta get rid of the dude. How do we do that? 2 dungeon crawls, and then we fight him. That's what it was. It's like, here's 2 dungeons. Fight your way through both of them, and then you can fight this man. Good luck. Poor, but anyway. I do not like the design of it. Not really. I'm just looking at how we got here on this entire list, in case there's anything I really kind of want to talk about today. All right, you know what? I will bring one of these here that I think is an interesting one, because both of us have kind of been all right. God, I like look at these and I just kind of think about, do I want to talk about that today? Okay, you know what we can chat about a little bit, because both of us are interesting. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if Momo would have experience in that one. Damn it, that might be a good one for 3 people then. Okay. I found one. Here's an interesting one, because both of us run stuff, and this is an interesting kind of concept, and it's something that I think a lot of us who run games suffer from sometimes. Role-playing a combat. And what I mean by that is, like, okay, when you first say that, I think most people think about, you know, oh, we'll just skip over a combat and have some kind of role-playing moment in place of it. And that's, I guess, a version of this, but it's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, like, giving a combat a flourish enough to make it feel like it's something you're role-playing, you know? A lot of us are just sort of like, I shoot gun, I stab sword, I cast spell, you know, and that kind of, like, boils down on both, honestly, player and GM side, you know, a lot.
Yeah, honestly, I can fall into that trap sometimes. I usually try not to. I am very, definitely I tried not to when we were doing Bastion Frontier, if I remember correctly. But, yeah, no, it's easy to fall into that, and sometimes, like, it depends on what you're trying to do. But what's hard, and this actually comes into play, I think, more depending on the players too, because sometimes the players get very bland. And that's where I have an issue, where it's just all like, they're just like, okay, I do this thing. So in some cases, I personally have taken to basically like, basically describing a round after it happens. So basically, everyone does their turn, and then I basically go, okay, so you run over to the place and punch the guy as he flips over and hits him from behind, and then, you know, like, I describe their actions together.
Yeah.
Where I found that to be very, very difficult, though, is in, like, sci-fi, honestly. Guns.
Yeah.
You can't describe that fantasy flourish in the same kind of fun, overdramatic way. But it's all like...
I feel fantasy's easier to do that with, because there's a lot more flourish, and there's a lot more sparks and stuff, you know, like, I'm creating a fireball, you know, I'm doing this stuff, where, like, yeah, it's sort of like, I shoot my laser pistol, pew, pew!
Yeah, and it's just all like, you know, you could say, like, oh, you ducked behind the cover, and it glanced, and you feel the heat glance off, but it's like, you can describe stuff like that, but at that point, you're just kind of, you know, you okay, glances off that, or does that, or, you know. You can only, like, describe ducking behind cover to avoid a shot in so many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I very much so kind of agree with that heavily. It's I think it's also the thing is, like, you want to give a narrative to make a combat feel more narrative and more exciting, but the problem is like, there is a very fine line between just talking about it and honestly overly talking about it, you know, putting too much detail in, and then, like, you know, bogging things down with trying to add, like, the flourish too.
That's why I found it better to describe it once per round.
Yeah. Well, I think also, like, a player trying to, like, add some flourish to their thing too can be the same way. It's sort of like, it can be very easy for, you know, me to kind of, like, talk about the way I defeat this enemy, you know, or something like this, where I hit him, and, like, it could sound a lot cooler than it actually is, you know. It's sort of like, you describe this thing and you did, like, 3 damage. You know, it's something like... You know,
that's why you don't worry about that, though, if you're trying to do that, though. It's like, they did 3 damage, so what? You say they're teetering on the edge, how do you finish it? You know, like, I actually like doing that, too, sometimes, where you basically give it up to the players to tell how you do it. Because that's the thing, they can actually be a lot more creative. Like I said, it's kind of hard to describe however many times, you know, someone gets shot, you know, but players can actually get pretty creative. Like, I jump out from behind the cover, do a roll, aim my scope, and, you know, like, they can center it around themselves in a way that's hard to do as, like, a GM.
Yeah.
They also can think about how their character would act, or something that character might say, you know, like, stuff like that. So asking the players to do, like, a finishing kill, that's also a fun way to get that involved.
Yeah, and certainly, I feel like it's good to have players involved in the descriptive process, because then it adds to their creativity. But it's like, it's the cool thing that we all want to do, but it's really like, sometimes you just want to get a combat done, or, like, you know, you can only, like, I guess for larger, more important enemy combats, it's more important, but for, like, I'm fighting a bunch of, like, I don't know, like, rats in a basement. You can only flourish rats so much, you know?
I don't know.
I guess you
like,
could.
That's the thing, like,
the epic
honestly,
fight.
players can do pretty good. I'm not, like, honestly, if, like, as far as asking players to flourish, what's hard is when you have players that that don't do that well. Because then in some ways you're putting them on the spot. And that's something that can be hard, because there are some players who just aren't that creative. Like, I step out and I shoot him. You know, I'm like, you know what? That's disappointed, but you got, like, okay, and then see, because if you ask a player to do that, and then they do something like that, you then have to describe something a lot like, and then it hits him in the chest, and you just, you know, like, you have to expound upon it to make them feel like they participated. And that can be hard, and that's usually more of a, it depends on your players.
It does depend on a lot. Like, it's such a thing of, like, depending on the kind of players you're playing and the kind of game you're doing, like, it's... Even the simplest of combats can feel kind of boring if you don't add a lot. Even, like, to, like, those people that are very mechanical, you maybe want to, like, describe something at very least, you know, even if you don't go into a lot of depths, because it keeps it from being that, you know, like... just roll some dice, you stabbed and it's dead, you know. And that can work, but it just... It is a little bit more fun, I think, to have a little bit more to understanding what's going on. A little bit more story.
It also brings... That's the thing, too, is it can also bring context. Like, if you go, okay, and he tumbles backwards and his dead body lounges over a chair. You go, oh, there's a chair there. Okay, well, I'm going to kick him off the chair and grab it and smack it over... You know, like, it can also bring... Or it can be like his watch explode, you know, you fry his watch and explode shrapnel into his face or something like that. It's like, okay, so that's something that can be done, or, you know, there's lots of little things that, like, can add more. And this is one thing that I have a hard time with, is that, like, I'm usually almost completely okay with players adding things into the scene, something that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Like, if they say, I want to, like, I shoot the light from above and it falls on, you know, I shoot the chandelier and it falls, but on the guy, you know, I'm like, okay, that's totally fine, there's a chandelier now. My issue, though, is there are some players who will be all like, and I shoot him in the dark, and he whispers a word of his dark master, and I'm all like, no, he doesn't.
There are people that add flourishes that probably wouldn't actually, like, exist too, you know, yeah.
Yeah, like, you have to be, because, like, you have to mix environment, you know, like, or like, I shoot the chandelier, it's like you're in an underwater, you're in an underwater cavern, there's no chandelier, you know?
I didn't describe a chandelier, just use with what I described with. I didn't give you a lot, because you don't know about a lot. You can only shoot so much, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, that's the thing, is, like, I don't care if they, like, add a chandelier into a building, but if they're, like, trying to add it into, like, a cave or something, it's like...
I mean, like, I feel like also it's sort of like, if you're going to go for some flourish like that, maybe ask, like, a question or something, you know, like, you know, and add that description to, like, what you're doing. It's sort of like, oh, there's, like, you know, is there a chandelier here? Or is there a stalactite here that I can shoot at or something like that if you're in, like, a cave or something, you know? I feel like there's a degree of communication and trying to understand, and I think it does come back to reading the environment you're in, too, a little bit, too, because you have to be like, what the hell's in this environment that we're, like, you know, fighting out in? You know, what's going on here? What's all in the area?
I wish players asked more questions about the environment.
It is a thing that sometimes... I wish players asked more questions in general sometimes.
That's true, yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I will give the example of which I thought about it. I'm like, you know, sure. I mean, I guess I could have done something a little differently, but I thought it would be kind of funny to be like, you know, barbarian culture, very, like, violent, like, fighting culture, you know, like, if this woman that's in charge of it has been undefeated, you know, and kind of things like that, and, like, so, like, okay, narrate, you know, the one character defeats them. What do they do? You now are my husband, you know, you are the controller of our tribe. Come with me to my bedchambers, you know, that's the thing that she thinks. And they were all, like, shocked with this, and I'm like, you could have asked questions about their culture before you started to fight with them. You know? You could have been like, so what does this mean to beat her? You know, like, that's even a question, is what would it mean to this entire group here to beat her, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, in some cases, I usually will be like, someone roll a check, you know? If it's gonna be like that, if it's something like the players could have figured it out in some way, I'll usually ask. But at the same time, there's very much... it's more when, you know, players actually have to ask... See, my big thing is all like, I mean, you didn't ask if there was... It's like I mentioned there's a room full of people, and then I mentioned some of the people run away, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to steal the stuff that remains. I'm like, I didn't say everyone ran away. You could have asked to look around, you know, first. Then I'll be all like, okay, And you hear someone shouting for the police now. It's like, but I thought everyone ran away. No.
You said some people ran away. Yeah. There's a difference between the words some and everyone.
Yeah. Players just, like, sometimes don't get that.
They just don't pay attention to.
They don't pay attention. And it's hard. You'll miss stuff, but it's all, like, you can at least ask, like, is there anyone around before I... Like, it's just critical thinking. Sorry, now I'm just kind of dragging on certain player aspects where it's just like, you go, like, I'm gonna steal. It's like, well, you gotta think, like, what would you actually do in the situation? It's like, okay, look around to see if there's anyone here first, you know? Mm-hmm. But anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, but getting back to combat.
It's a thing that, like, I think it's a good thing to have some kind of role-playing aspect, some kind of words used to describe what's going on in a combat, actions that are happening, events that are happening, results of various things you do, and for many of us who GM out there is, of course, a challenge and a thing that we all struggle to try to actually do, so good luck to you.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to figure out. It also depends very much on the players. There's some groups who would love to do it as like a tactical. You know, it's all like I have yet to meet them, despite the fact that I'd like to. But you know, there are some groups who would be like, no, I want this to be like a tactical engagement. You know?
Yeah.
And in that case, the role playing's fine. You know, it's probably fine to leave role playing out a little bit.
Yeah.
Until the fight's over. You know.
So, it's a it's a challenge, you know, on all of aspects of it, and it's a thing that, you know, all of us who do DMing, GMing, you know, run games struggle with, honestly, you know, because some combats you just don't feel like it either, you know, like once you're 4 hours into a session and you're having a combat that's going to be like the last thing in your session, you're probably not feeling as creative as you were 1 hour in, you know. Gotta be honest.
That's a very hard thing sometimes. I'm just so like, I'm kind of already like, I kind of want this to be done. I don't want to add anything to this if it will make it last longer.
We've had long enough of the session, you know, like things like that. You know, again, it's
yeah.
You do your best and you try to keep the energy up, and you can only do so much. So you're human, you know. It's a good idea to think about role-playing combat. If you mess up or you don't do as much as you feel like, don't kick yourself. You tried. I think that's the best way to say it. Did your best.
Yep.
It's a cool idea. Do what you can. There we go. Hey, that was a good topic. Fucking Jesus. Look at me, brain power. That was actually a good one to throw in there. So, I think that's a great place to leave off for today. Thank you once again for joining me, Worm. Do you have anything to throw out there as I shout you out?
Yeah, I stream on twitch.tv/Diamondwyrm on Saturdays and Sundays right now at around 10:30 to 11 is when I start, somewhere in that range.
Look at me go. I still can do this properly with these commands sometimes.
I'm also on Twitter.
Yes.
In fact, I'm Diamondwyrm everywhere. Just look up Diamondwyrm and
yeah. Cool. As for myself, I mean, honestly, you're here, you see me most days. I'm streaming pretty much every day except for Sundays, unless family stuff comes up. Like this week had a bunch of family things. I think I did stream, I only missed one day, but it was a busy second half of the week with a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
It happens.
I'm surprised you streamed for like 4 hours yesterday.
I got caught up with whatever I was doing.
No, I think it was like 5.
I got caught up with what I was doing. I got started, and like I was doing... At the end there, I got like some kind of stupid quest line that I'm like, whatever, okay, what's going on here? I'm like, I killed some people there. What's going to this place? And I'm like, oh, I literally forgot that at the beginning of the like game, the first time I got to that place, it's sort of like, help me drain the water from here. And I'm like, okay. And then I came back there, and like the water was actually drained, and I'm like, oh crap, that actually like happened. So then I had to like kill another dungeon, which was like another 45 minutes to clear that out to finally finish up. And I was feeling kind of off there at the end there too. I was like, God, I probably should have just ended, but I wanted to like get to like finish up what I was doing. So I don't want to forget what I'm doing, because I'm forgetful, and I'm like, make sure I do all the little stuff, so when I start out with, I'm at least fresh slate, I didn't have anything on the agenda. But nonetheless, got it done. We were fun. It was fun, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, tabletop. Saturdays in the morning, usually around noon, between 11 and noon I start. In the afternoons on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but around like 1 to 2 in that area. I talk tabletop for like an hour and a half at most, around that area. Sometimes topics are a little bit more. If it's usually really short topics, I'll do like 2 of them. I only did the one topic today if it was a shorter topic, because honestly, I didn't set up a second one. And I was starting a little on the later side, so I was like, just screw it, I'll just do it. But if you want to see some more tabletop stuff, other than this, the live show of Buccaneers Shackled Sea, which is on every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. EST. And then I do variety gaming, like we were talking about there, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I have my Discord and Twitter. They're places to check out my random thoughts, schedules, and kind of things like that. Anyway, I think that's the big thing. If you're watching here on Twitch, we would love a follow. If you're watching on YouTube, a subscription, so just subscribing to the YouTube channel, leaving a like, comment, any of that kind of stuff. Great stuff there. Always helps out. You want to help out the various algorithms and stuff if you're watching this thing. So, leaving some form of support is better than nothing. Something that shouts out, I stopped by and enjoyed some of what you're talking about. Anyway, I'm going to say I'll be back on Monday. Thank you once again, Worm, for joining me, and I will see everybody.
To like, comment, subscribe on YouTube.
Yes, do all those weird things on YouTube. Do the YouTube things. Anyway, farewell, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend. Boy.